Hey, how you doing, Joe Riley?
I'm doing very well, Carlos. Good afternoon here this fine Saturday before the rain comes tomorrow, but I'm doing well.
Excellent, excellent. Happy to be back here with you talking about some forgotten television gems, and our current focus is The White Shadow.
Oh yes, The White Shadow. It's the more I watched it, the more it brings back memories, and the
Yeah,
more that I was like, I may have missed some of this
yeah,
because we weren't there. And
yeah.
it's been a fun journey.
Yep. I was a fan of it as a kid for the basketball and for the singing in the shower, and I was going to be Coolidge and the superstar, and that was all that was in my mind. And all these social issues in the show, I had zero memory of it. But we are round and amen corner of the first season. We're talking about,
Yeah.
I think, episodes 7 and 8. Starting with our Ricky Gomez-centered episode called "That Old Gang of Mine."
Ooh, do we have to go back one? I think Carlos to
Oh, the
episode
Wanna Bet?
6.
Oh, Wanna Bet.
Yes, we have not talked about Wanna Bet.
Oh, I thought we had to. Yeah, you and I briefly had talked about it. Okay, so we got 6 and 7 and maybe 8 if we get there. But Wanna
Yeah.
Bet what? Ken Reeves sees a kid hustling basketball on a public court and says, "Hey, this kid's got some game."
Correct. And I think that, as we talked about, Ken Reeves is trying to convince him to go to school because, as most established people, you go to high school,
Yeah,
you go to college. That's how you get to the pros.
yeah,
You're not going to go by hustling in the
yeah.
park. And he gives him those sort of warnings too, as well. But I
He was doing.
guess
He was doing kind of a white men can jump before white men can jump, which I guess was just doing street hustle basketball.
exactly. And then that was played by this character, this young man, was played
Mm-hmm.
by Michael Warren, who I found out, and maybe we talked about this a little bit, was on the UCLA basketball team
Okay.
and played with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, so making him a cool 33 years old when he played this 17-year-old student.
And also the actor, I remember him fondly from Hill Street Blues.
Yep.
He was Bobby Hill. He was Renko's partner. A little known fact, I don't know if we'll ever do a Hill Street Blues podcast, but his character was supposed to die at the end of the pilot. He and Renko were supposed to die at the end of the Hill Street Blues pilot. They're both gunned down and killed, and then I don't know, whatever networks do to shows after the pilot says, no, keep those two. And so they never explain in season 2 how they're alive after they took horrible number of rounds to the body.
Gotcha. I remember that too. And yeah, he was, and of course, how that brings it back to the White Shadow was Stephen Bochco was the producer of this, where he was a writer.
Okay, so Bochco was. So there's that connect, because there is a couple episodes later, there's another Hill Street Blues actor that shows up.
Oh yeah, well, I think we're both. Yeah, I'm
We're
right
both
there
clocking
with
the
you
same
too.
guy. So Reeves tries to get this kid into school, and he's dealing with the vice principal again. He's from somewhere. He's got to go to school somewhere. What about his transcripts? There are no transcripts. There's no nothing.
Yeah, and that was an interesting kind of scene where the principal, always dressed to the nines, kind of is the peacemaker between Reeves and the vice principal.
Yep.
But it did one of those classic sitcom things of the 70s where after Reeves kind of steamrolls his way to getting what he wants and he walks out the door, there's a scene where the vice principal and the principal look at each other. Then there's a cut to the exasperation on the vice principal, and the principal almost shrugs his shoulders and smiles and say, almost boys will be boys kind of thing.
Yep. No, it is interesting. And I have no doubt that is somewhat realistic. Back then, coaches were cajoling teachers and things like that. And because that he actually is a good guy who gets involved with these kids' lives. He also wants to win.
Yeah, I thought that was good. Did you, and I didn't do any research on this, or maybe I don't know if there is such a thing, but did you get the toothpick thing?
I did not.
So he, for all those who are listening during the episode, he carries a toothpick in his sock. And once he's done playing basketball, he takes the toothpick out of his sock and puts it in his mouth.
Oh, interesting.
I'm not sure what status symbol that
I'm just
was.
trying to, there were a few guys that would do that in the 70s, toothpick. The one I remember is Telly Savalas with the sucker, but the toothpick thing, I'm trying to think, but there were guys that would do that.
Yeah, maybe if we can circle back on one of these other episodes.
Yeah, what was up with that?
What was up with that?
Usually that's just like something that a writer, I know a guy and this and that, how stuff gets in there. But it'd be curious to see, because that is a very, there had to have been a conversation around that.
Exactly.
Came from somewhere.
So the crux of the episode is that our 17-year-old student owes money to a bookie.
Yes.
And of course, Reeves going to charge in there and see what he can do to
help fix it. Apparently, Reeves quickly is able to find the bookie.
I don't think it was that bookie, right? Wasn't it another bookie? He would talk to the other.
Yeah, he was going to talk to the guy.
And I was like, why does Ken Reeves know a bookie in L.A.? But I thought that was a good scene.
Because he's not from L.A. That's the other thing is we have to remember. He's not from L.A.
Correct.
He was a bull. Now, his sister happens to live there, but...
Yeah, and it's just, for me, it was just like he had this little lunch and he said, hey, the kid's got to pay. He can do it in installments. But then the guy, and he assures Ken that he's going to do it. But then, spoiler alert, in the next scene, finds out that the police found out that the bookie that he owed money to is dead.
Yep.
And so what did Ken really say off camera?
Yeah.
So I thought that was an interesting little twist, and then how that scared the Michael or the character
the
about
kid.
The kid, and it was but it does show a little bit of Reeves getting involved in their lives and trying to help take care of these things. But then obviously after this incident, we don't see him again because Bobby Magnum goes back to Oakland where he's from. And of course, they didn't want to pay another actor, and how would they write him in anyway?
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So that was just a special thing. But we got to see once again, Reeves is not acting completely outside of self-interest. He sees a kid with some skills, and he'd love to have him on the Carver squad. At the same time, he wants to help the kid out, but once again with that motive of I want him to play for Carver.
Exactly. And when Reeves is leaving the meeting between the principal and the vice principal, he says, yes, get his transcripts, everything, his grades, his date of birth, his free throw percentage, his field goal percentage. So he was ecstatically aware of this particular player's skills. So that was very good. But yeah, I enjoyed that episode. For me, at least in my mind, Carlos, that's probably the one that I remember the most. And is one of the most famous in my mind.
Really?
Because of that actor from Hill Street Blues for whatever reason.
I didn't have any recollection of this episode. I'm trying to think. I remember more scenes. The one thing I remembered taking back, not having thought back about the White Shadow for 40 years, was singing in the shower. And I remember Coolidge. It's going to happen, I think, maybe next season, is Coolidge starts to get a big head.
Oh,
and the team starts to get a big head. And I know that there's a couple episodes there where he's got to kind of knock them down off the mountain so that they realize they're not as great as they think they are.
There we go. That's good.
All right. Now we can move on to Ricky Gomez and his problems at school and what happens as a result. This actually was a very progressive episode, indicating that maybe the reason the kid has trouble in school is is a representation issue. Which I'm like going, wow, talk about being 40 years ahead of time.
That amazed me. This whole episode, for me, was how progressive it was.
Yeah.
And how many different layers this was. And it brought back, for me, the biggest nostalgia that I can recall from my youth of watching these episodes, which I'll go into, not at this particular moment, but later in this episode. But I just thought that how Gomez was failing because of his grades.
Yeah.
Because he didn't want to do a book report on Little Women.
Yep.
Or the biography of Malcolm X.
Which, by the way, he's missing out because that's a great book.
Yeah. But I think, too, and that they wanted him, the advocates were trying to get him to do the autobiography of Zapata, I believe. Correct?
Yeah. They're saying it's like going, hey, you know what? Let's head him something that speaks to him. And I don't know. I recall some of my high school memories are vague, but I do recall it might have been an 11th grade English class. I remember my English professor at St. Louis Park High School was Lorna Goines. She was British, and she just had a list of books. I don't know what was on it. I picked First Blood, which is actually a really good book. It was on a high school reading list, right?
Yeah.
It's actually, I discovered something I love. I always love narratives where much of it happens inside the guy's head. And so the character Rambo, which is what they changed the name to, most of that movie is him strategically thinking of what he's going to do next. It's pretty much, I don't know if you've read or seen Project Hail Mary, but much of that narrative is one guy alone or with a non-English speaking entity that does that. So I was like going, I never was faced with, it did have a little bit like, why can't we read stuff where it's English, you know what I mean? As opposed to Old English or whatever it is that that you constitute Shakespeare, but you work through it. You bought a Cliff Notes if you needed to, and you worked your way through it. But once again, one of the things that you've asked me and I've been asked before, I never really thought of you as a minority, Carlos, because you were in a white community and your dad talked funny. But other than that, like a lot of people's parents talked funny. And it was really not, I did not have that identity. I did not like, hey, I need to read about Cortez. None of that was part of my identity as a little kid.
And that's one of the things I thought about was like, and not that the point about, I wonder if Carlos wanted to read this particular book as opposed to whatever it was for us, but for the first time, and it showed up in several scenes where Coach Reeves didn't have the power. He couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it when he was talking to the principal, the vice principal. He couldn't do it when he's talking to the mom and the mom's interpreter.
Yep.
Whose mom's interpreter, by the way, has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Really? Wow. Look at you with the research. Holy cow.
But yes, and so I thought that was great. But so it was one of the one times that I found he was powerless, though he did try to talk with the staff, which I thought that particular individual meeting and then group meeting would not happen today, or there would be so many union reps on a phone.
Yeah, you could not have that. But you know what? Here's the thing that happens. You have individual human beings dealing with circumstances, and I think individual human beings dealing with circumstances can deal with nuance because you're part of it. But because it's like, I think anyone watching that show going, yeah, it's like, Ricky, let him read about Zapata. He's still learning this and that. It does not come off as some kind of, the left reading whatever is replacing Western thought kind of stuff. It's like, at no point in that episode is anyone thinking at that level. They're just thinking about, hey, this kid is failing. What can we do to engage him? And I'm like, did you ever watch The Wire?
Yes.
Okay.
Many years ago.
There's a guy whose name I can't remember, but horrible cop. Discharged his weapon in his car by himself on accident. Horrible cop. Becomes a high school teacher and is actually a really damn good high school teacher. But what he does, like when he's teaching math, and I realize I am not making a commentary about any community. I'm just making a commentary about what the teacher on the show met them where they are, which is he did, all right, you guys are good. You guys like to play dice or whatever. Do you know how to calculate the odds so you can do it better? But you can do the same thing with baseball batting averages, whatever you want to do to engage a kid. Like I said, if it's a graphic novel, to me, kids reading is a good thing. And we should encourage that however we need to. And I don't think it needs to be a big social debate or anybody should feel like they're being replaced or whatever some people think. I think the kernel of the idea, I don't know, just seems reasonable to me. Maybe I'm living in my own ivory tower, but it just struck me as a very I didn't see it as a massive, shift in policy, what he was suggesting.
I think that's one of those little pebbles or drops of water that came about. Yeah. So
I do have to add one concern I had with the show is there had to have been more Hispanic actors to play the gang members. So there was some bad accents. And then there's a scene in their gang clubhouse where they're dancing.
Yeah.
Get some people who can dance, for Christ's sake. I'm sorry, but it's like, you got a clubhouse full of Latinos and none of them can dance. And that bugged me.
Yeah, I agree. That was, I think, like the first guy that kind of speaks to him. But that brings me to that beginning of that. And let me step back because the reason Gomez has bad grades, gets kicked off the basketball team, gets rid of his Carver coat, and then is walking down the street.
Yeah.
And then meets this gang who's going to rob him, but then they find out it's Gomez. They don't, and he gets back into this gang. So
I didn't get if he had been a gang member before or he just grew up with these guys and they knew him, but he's in the gang now.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm not sure either way too, but that particular scene, Carlos, of him walking down the street, two things that came to my mind. When he's walking down the street dressed to the nines, which they're showing him doing that, he very reminiscent of Tony from Saturday Night Live.
Yes,
walking down the street, and which had been just out.
Yeah,
it had been 2 years before.
Yeah,
and then the other thing, Carlos, I don't know if you remembered, was he had in his back pocket one of those giant combs.
Oh,
and for me, there was nostalgia that just waved through my junior and high school years because that was such a big deal.
It was. Joe, let me tell you, when you grow up, everybody wants something different, right? And so all my friends have the feathered hair, right? Straight hair. And I wanted straight hair. So I carry that big ass comb, even though you couldn't get through all my tangles and stuff with it. Eventually I owned it and switched to a pick back there. Because a lot of people see that I'm follically challenged now, but I was working a pretty good fro back then. But I spent the summer between 7th and 8th grade in California, which I used to do a lot with my aunt. And I said, I want to have straight hair. So she asked her beauty, and they're like, we really don't do that. So it sends us to African-American beauty stores and this and that. And then I kind of chickened out. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'll just deal with my hair. Of course, I get back. All the guys had gotten perms. All the guys with the straight hair had gotten perms. So it's kind of just an example. But to your point, I distinctly remember those big ass combs sticking out of your pocket.
And I did some research.
Yeah.
On these big ass combs and their origin. Like, how did this happen?
Yeah.
So in the 50s, now we're getting into another correlation to the show.
Yeah.
Jets and sharks, right?
Sure.
So we're getting a little into that. So the 50s, the elaborate pompadours and the hairdos was something where combs became something of a thing.
Yep.
And then obviously in the 70s and 80s, as you said, feathering, perms, having a comb was the de rigueur thing.
Yep.
And then I even remember myself, I had an ace comb, which ace was the thing. I was too afraid to have it stick out of my back pocket, so I just had one of those littler ones.
Okay.
That you would do that. Sure. And then the whole comb thing went away because of the rise of the 90s grunge.
The grunge, yeah.
So their hair was more unkempt, and then that sort of fell out of place. So I thought it was the greaser era, even when you go back to the Shark Chin Jacks. And him walking down the street like Tony from Saturday Night Fever.
Yeah.
And then obviously joining the gang is obviously Sharks and Jets and things too. So for me, it was just a wave of nostalgia.
Yeah. Yep.
And I don't know, it just hit me that way. And so that's why I didn't mean to wax poetically too long about that.
No, absolutely. It's one of the things that I love about the nostalgia of the show. It's actually why I love doing rewatches of old shows. I try not to read too much because you got the little gems you get of seeing actors before they were actors and stuff. And there's a ton of those people that we see and we point them out as we're doing them. But just the cultural stuff that's different and the similarities, right? It's a lot of fun.
And then
go ahead.
I was going to say one of the kind of the interesting but not so believable things in the episode was Coach Reeves. Again, when Go-Go is joining this gang, Reeves is trying to prevent it.
Yeah.
He drives down to the police station based on the discussion he had with his mom.
Yeah.
Clearly parks in a police-only slot, and they made sure you do that. And then the next thing you know, he's going on a ride-along with the detective, which...
Of the gang unit.
Yep, very noble, but I don't think that happens.
I think that works like that.
But it could.
Yeah. I've got a very obscure Easter egg for this one, and I would suspect that you did not get it. Most people didn't, but I had to rewind and see. So there's a moment in this show where Reeves and the principal are having a conversation, and they're telling an old story from college about a kid named Ross Geller.
Oh, that's like a Friends name.
That's the name of David Schwimmer's character on Friends. I just thought it was funny that their random name generator just landed on a name.
That's great. No, I didn't know that.
I've actually heard that writers throw in kids' names from high school or stuff, or if they got a real jerk, they'll put the person they hated from high school. Or
I gotcha. And I think one of those things I did like about the ride-along anyway was the scenes of L.A. in 1977, 78.
Yeah.
Which was cool just to see what...
Although it was not a good time for new cars.
No.
It was a great time for older cars from the 60s and early 70s, but man, did the U.S. produce some really shitty cars in the 70s. That was the height of the K car.
Yeah, but no, it was good. And then the woman that I mentioned who got the Hollywood Walk of Fame, she was the interpreter for the mother. Her name was Carmen Zapata.
Okay.
And her most famous, longest tenured show was the TV soap opera Santa Barbara.
Barbara. Oh.
So she's been around a long time, but I know she's passed away at this point in time. You would some of those people, even they can recognize them when I see them, but they weren't ever famous, but then they're on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Character actors, there's a couple actors that just in general that just died this past week. One was murdered and the other one was just died.
Oh, yeah.
It's you see these character actors and you're like, I know him from 50 things because they're just always there. And you realize it's like on most of these shows, you can't just have the star, right? You need to have other people in it, and they a lot of times steal the show.
Yeah.
So,
and were you surprised that in these first, what is it now? This is the 7th episode. Gomez is the main character in 2 of them.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Pam was watching a little bit with me, and she's not connected to the show, has no recollection of the show and stuff. But I was saying, they got every ethnic group in the world. Flo used to do a bit about the people that were on the bus in Speed. And she goes, they nailed she goes, I'm surprised there wasn't an Eskimo with a spear in the back. Share every demographic. But
Gotcha.
We got, and then we have coming up we have a Goldstein specific episode coming up here towards the end of the season. And there's some really good stuff coming. Do you want to try to tackle just one of the boys, or did you want to?
Let's tackle one of the boys. And just one last thing. I mentioned Gomez.
Yes.
Left acting.
Okay.
And is now a Christian pastor in Orange County, where I think, as I mentioned off air, Carlos, I think he is part of those series commentaries.
Oh, cool.
I thought that was very good. But let's try on to the next episode, which is one of the boys, which is, you go, Carlos, because it's you give us a little summary, because I know this is something.
Sure. First of all, it is a young man who transfers in. He is played by, I think his name is Peter Horton. He's most well known. He's the one that played Gary on 30-something.
Yep.
So kind of your California surfer guy who kind of lives by the seat of his pants kind of guy. And he plays a young man that transfers to Carver. And
from the Palisades.
From the Pacific Palisades. And there's a bit of a mystery of why he transferred over. I think that he said that the public story he gave was that he had some problems with some bullies or something there. But we find out that his father thought he might be gay, and the players at the Palisades thought he might be gay, and so that's why he transferred to start new. And so Reeves finds all this out, talks to the dad, because that's the thing is Reeves goes to the source. He talks to the parent. This is the 3rd or 4th parent he's gone and talked to so far here in the first season, and the dad is not exactly very sympathetic. The dad's he's got to toughen up.
Oh, that guy looked like he was a stereotypical early 70s ball busting kind of businessman dad who dressed with the full suit. He was not
an Alan Alda type dad, an Archie Bunker more type dad.
No, it was not that too as well. And one of my favorite parts of that, and one of the kind of the coolest scenes, that obviously he bonds before they know he's gay with his new teammates, and they go to a rich part of town.
Yes, they're
going to hustle the rich kids for some money. And the way they set it up, the dialogue, the language of how they're opening up a basketball clinic, I thought that was pretty darn clever.
It was.
Like, kudos to the writers.
It was somebody has tried to hustle on the streets before. Yeah, no, that was, and then of course, bad for our new young man that these are kids that knew him from Palisades.
Yep. And then the secret comes out that he had those, they don't really come out and say it, but he had those tendencies. But here's another Easter egg for you with those players, the rich kid players, Carlos. I got it wrong before in episode 2, I believe, about someone being part of Star Trek. Well, I know for a fact one of those basketball players was Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek: A New Generation.
God, I got to go back and look. Oh my God, I missed that.
Yep, he was one of those ones in the scene in terms of one of those guys who was doing that. Like, just so people aren't confused. Yes, the kids from Carver were losing the game for money, but eventually came back and won it because the supposedly homosexual character started playing better after he was pumped up by his teammates, in sense of the word.
And they did mention here, I've noticed it just a couple of times, that this is the first, they refer to this young man as being a sophomore. So that would make him, 16 or 17, which stretches credulity. But then again, that was the era when they tried to let us know that Rizzo from Greece was a high school student. So he is suspended leave, but there's also his coach comes and talks to Reeves.
Yes.
And I don't know if you recognize the actor, but that he played Mick Belker from Hill Street Blues. A very, very, very memorable character from Hill Street Blues. So another connection.
Yeah, and I'll give you one more on that guy.
Yeah.
He attended Carnegie Tech with Stephen Bochco.
Wow.
And since we're all from Minnesota too as well, he studied at the Minneapolis Guthrie Theater.
Very cool.
Belcher was before he became a dog on TV or
Yeah,
a police sergeant acting like a dog.
Yeah.
He was doing Shakespeare or whatever classical plays
at
there too as well.
That's awesome. That's actually something I should research, because back in the day, so back in the 70s, 80s, it was like, oh, Nick Nolte was at the Guthrie, but it's like, well, I'm assuming we can do better than that. I saw a play at the Guthrie. It was, oh my God, I cannot remember. His Gal Friday, but it starred the prosecutor from Law and Order Criminal Intent. Criminal Intent. His name is Courtney B. Vance. And then the woman who played Tina Turner was in it. So it was very good. So it's good to see actors like that. And thanks for making that connection, because I think we need more than just Nick Nolte was an young actor at the Guthrie.
I know that Amy Adams, if you're familiar with her work, she worked at the Chanhassen Dinner Theater in her day.
I did not know that. That is awesome.
So there are some of those little bits and pieces too as well. And back to this episode too.
Yeah.
Reeves struggling with that aspect of homosexuality, because he hasn't really come across it in sports before. And who comes as the voice of reason is his sister.
Actually, he says, I should just cut him. I don't want to deal with these headaches. I should just cut him, which is just wow. But if you think about it from his perspective, it's like going, I don't need this hassle. It's not worth it, which is sad. That's his perspective as a coach. It's sad, though, that, and as you mentioned, his sister says, shame on you.
Yeah. And what she says, where have you been for the last 5 years?
Yeah, which is interesting.
I'm thinking to myself, it's maybe more a California perspective than it was in a Minnesota perspective. Or obviously, as we know, we were dumb kids. We didn't know what the heck that meant.
They did mention Anita Bryant. So, Anita Bryant was... Yeah. I don't know. I knew her. I'm sure she did a lot of things, but I knew her. She was the spokesperson for Orange Juice.
Yep.
And she campaigned against gay people. That's the only two things I know about Anita Bryant in the 70s. That was the two things she was known for. I don't know if she was a model or an actress or where she came from, but so they did mention her. What are you, Anita Bryant? And
and then the term that they brought up, starts with an F and ends in a G.
Yeah.
Came up in the episode. Yep. And for me, anyway, that is one of the more prevalent words used to refer to homosexuals back then, as I recall, in the 70s and 80s. Yeah. And then I also had them refer...
It's similar to if someone was to ask you in England for a cigarette.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yep. And then a bundle of sticks would be the long version of that, the definition of that. So I think in my sense, it's colored. I think it had influence in terms of how that word was used. They drew from what they had heard. So it was just very poignant.
Well, the reality is that the word then that was used most predominantly in our generation and going forward into the next one is we would just refer to gay. We would use gay as a negative word. Oh, that's just gay or this or that. And it was common usage. And there's nothing wrong with the word, but using it as a pejorative, there is something very wrong with it, but we just did it. And I'm not one of these people. So I just lament that we can't say racist stuff anymore. I was like, no, if a term is hurtful, then I will choose not to use it. I'm going to be conscious about it. Right. I mean, I'm not worried about being canceled. I'm not worried about, I'm like, if I can live my life in a way that does not cause unnecessary upset to people, I'm going to make that choice.
Yep. And then the penultimate kind of scene was when Peter Horton meets with the vice principal on Ken's urging that she talk to him about how he's trying to figure out who he is. Yeah. And I don't want people, it's actually a very good discussion and it's good advice. Yeah. And I think if you have the time and effort, people to go and see it, well worth your time to see something like this from 1978.
And once again, let's put it in context of what else was out there at the time. It really... Did they handle things perfectly? Absolutely not. But you know what? They took a shot. Now, there's a few silly episodes we're going to come on that are not trying to engage in social commentary. It's more of a silly situation for the group of people, which are fun too. But they're really once again, you can call it after school special stuff, but they were really attacking in prime time gay rights in the 70s. That's crazy. And they were handling it, I think, in a very mature way and not putting their thumb on the scale, right? They're not
I think so.
And I think these are 3 Emmy. I would submit any of these 3 episodes. They were Once again, I'm not trying to put this in the TV Hall of Fame or anything, but I think this show does not get the respect it deserves.
There we go. No, I thought these episodes were the strongest, and I think it's really the show is now catching its stride here.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to rewatching. I'll be on to the next 3 episodes, and then I think it's going to be... I've seen some of the other ones where they're all on a plane, which is probably going to be the silly part.
That actually episode is a lot of fun, and it's very much a fish out of water episode, and then the head fish has to deal with the consequences of it.
And just one last thing before we go, because I think we're getting close to time, Carlos.
Yeah.
I was going to do this as a quiz for anyone who wants to message us, do sort of this. I was going to give a quiz, but since the answer, I looked it up, or I noticed it, but then I was on IMDb and noticed that they mention it.
Yeah.
For the Gomez episode, the opening is more horns and trumpets
than the
normal one. That was the first time they did that. And I was going to give any of our people who do that, I was going to give them the quiz, what's different about the Gomez episode, but now I can't because anyone can go to IMDb. It says it there.
Yeah.
But it was, that was another thing I noticed. And it's one of those things where I'm like, did I hear that right? Did I hear that right? But it was good.
And just as a tease, in our next week's episode, we will be discussing the kids going to Vegas.
There we go. I think that's one of your places you like to frequent on occasion, Carlos.
I like to go back and visit and see what they've done with my money. How well they've invested it.
There we go.
All right, Joe. Thank you so much. Enjoyed this episode of Forgotten Television, and we look forward to seeing everybody next week.
Yep. Thanks.
All right. Take care, Joe.